Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Chris Rossini, our co-host. Chris, good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Dr. Paul.
Okay, very good. You know, we're going to be talking about surveillance, and that's a real threat, and people are getting very concerned. All, for national security purposes, of course. That's why we have to have so much surveillance. But of course, what they use as the excuses, COVID virus and the pandemic and all these excuses. But before we do that, I do want to make a short comment about the loss of a very good friend, Walter Williams. He passed away this week, and I knew Walter for a long time. We were very similar in age, but he was astounding, very successful, was at George Mason University for a long time, was a free market economist, had a lot of credibility. You know, the one thing I sort of admired about him was he didn't raise with a silver spoon in his life. He wasn't an exceptional minority that happened to be, in a rich family. He lived in Philadelphia. He didn't have a father living with him. His mother did an astounding job in teaching him values. And the one thing that I really liked about him, he never saw himself as a victim. And I think that's one of the problems we have in this country. It's not just minorities overcoming a victimization, but it's overcoming this deliberate and organized effort to make everybody an effort so that they can get control of things. But Walter was different, and he studied hard. He taught a lot of people there. So I'll tell you what, the freedom movement will be missing Walter Williams. But today,
that's right, Dr. Paul. You have to admire anybody that struggles and tells the truth in the face of a lot of opposition in the arena of ideas. I want to start off with vaccination cards. You know, if we were to go back, take our audience back to the beginning of January, and someone said to you, this year there's going to be lockdowns in your house. You're going to be in masks. Tens of millions will be unemployed. And, by December of this year, you're going to start hearing about vaccination cards for everybody that everybody has to carry around. And first off, you wouldn't believe it. And you'd say, what is there, a virus? Yeah, there's a virus. Well, what's the survival rate for this virus? Oh, 99+%. It would boggle your mind in January to hear about where we are today. And, we are in a mental and intellectual battle. This is not a muscle and brute strength battle that we're in. Propaganda is concerned with your mind. And we do our best, and we hope that you do your best to provide the antidote to anything that tries to take away your freedom.
The fear is the key to it. And the people that oppose what we say have a lot of control, through the media and through the social media especially, and through the propaganda at our universities. And they have an agenda, and their agenda is not liberty. Their agenda is to control things, and they see themselves as elites, and they don't see fear-mongering as a negative. They see this as a positive. Boy, did we fool those people. I can imagine them sitting around now and say, can you see those people out there all wearing those masks, putting masks on their kids when there's absolutely no reason in the world for this, and it does more harm than good? They're probably laughing at us. But Biden is concerned. He's going to keep Fauci on, and he was saying, just recently that he said, don't be scared. He was advising, don't be scared. Yeah, but there's going to be approximately 250,000 Americans die in the next several weeks, which likely to be the end of the year. Well, I don't know how they're going to die or what they're going to do, but he's implying that the virus is going to do it, and Fauci is there to save us. And yet they have had no proof whatsoever that all this monkeying around with lockdowns and all this interference in people's lives hasn't done a bit of good. And this whole idea that it's necessary in order to preserve our whole country at the same time, it could be, in a free society, the people who want to wear a mask and protect themselves, if they think it helps them, they're allowed. But in a authoritarian society, for some reason, these people just get crazy that I'm a good citizen and patriotism is necessary. They get very, very angry and they report and spy on people and everything else. It's a bad situation. It's very bad, and this is the moral climate of this country, and I think we're slipping away from that. And you know, the whole idea of what's happening in politics and what has happened before, I think is very, very serious. But it is around this virus, and it is such an extreme. I think that this came up. It's hardly even a year, when we first even heard of this. And it's been the last 8 months where it's really got extreme. But it would have been hard for anybody to accurately, even those proponents, I don't believe they could ever believe they would be as successful as they were about intimidating and fear-mongering and scaring people and everybody wearing masks and staying at home. And now, Chris, what are they talking about? Canceling Christmas. And that still hasn't seemed to arouse a lot of people. It's arousing some, and some people are resistant. And of course, when we hear about the resistance, we are glad to compliment them, because that is what has to happen. It's the peaceful resistance against the insanities of government that is the proper tool. But you have to pay the price sometime, because they say you're committing civil disobedience and breaking the law. And just like they did the restaurant owner just yesterday in New York, they bust in, arrest him, put him in handcuffs. He was a totally peaceful person, just arguing, why can't I have my restaurant open? They open these big stores and big conglomerates just down the street. And there were no rules against, the saloons and different things, against the church, though, and other things. And yet the people aren't outraged, but there are some now starting to be. So let's hope that builds, because even that restaurant owner did get some public support. They came and supported him. So that's why we spend so much time on this program trying to get information out and encourage people to have a little bit of character and a little bit of sensitivity, that they can speak out, because a lot of times it's a lot more successful than they would ever dream.
Yes, and I remember when Dr. Paul, and I'm sure many of our viewers remember, in 2008 and 2012, when he would give those speeches, and he would often say, never sacrifice your liberty. Never means never, because once you open that door, it's bad news. And this year was a perfect example of what happens. The first mistake was sacrificing liberty, and the second mistake was in just waiting around for politicians to say it's okay. They'll tell us when it's okay and we can have our liberty back. Well, guess what happened? And we're now seeing, Dr. Paul sent me an article, it's stunning, from Zero Hedge. The UK's Deputy Chief Medical Officer said that despite even vaccines, face masks will still have to be worn for years. And he said that this virus is likely going to be with humankind forever. So the way I take it is, if they're allowed to demand whatever they want in the name of this virus now, then they want to demand whatever they want in the name of this virus forever. Dr. Paul, what do you think about this?
Well, it brings up the subject, are we at the stage where we will have to show our papers internally when we go from one store to the next, or one job to the next, or travel around the country? And I would say that the answer to that is pretty clear-cut, because our papers aren't quite like what they were like in Germany, but our papers now are our mask. If you don't have a mask, you really have curtailed your freedoms. I mean, people just look at you and challenge you and think you're unpatriotic, and you're causing the spread of diseases. And I guess we don't have to wait for the slogan to be popularized, where are your papers, because they do check on us now, and they're talking about this vaccination cards. And I think this is getting more attention in the media, and we've talked more about it, because of the vaccine and because of technology. When you think of the technology of what they might be able to do by inserting with the vaccine a way to trace people, and then, in addition to this, the cooperation with the government and Facebook and Oracle and these this effort is horrendous on what they're going to be able to do and in following. So right now, you know, it's we don't have to take our papers out of our wallet right now. But when the vaccine comes, what they do is they're using our body. They're injecting things that which they I will state their position, which they deny now that they would never think of ever doing anything like that. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people are a little skeptical, and I have sort of bragged on the people who have become skeptical about government because that's what it needs to be. And I think the skepticism now is being used in a proper manner. It's ridiculing those people who are totally and viciously hypocritical, writing the laws, and as they're writing their laws, they're disobeying the laws, and they're really not. They don't seem to be embarrassed. And I mentioned this the other day, that it is utterly amazing that there's no sense of guilt at all. They just do that, and they think that there's nothing to worry about, no inconsistency, because they think they have won this fight, and they have won a lot, and there's a lot of control that they have obtained. But they're going to pursue it, I think, when the vaccine comes out. But believe me, the more I read about it, the more I look at it, and although there's not been any major problems, they really haven't tested this vaccine. It's a vaccine that they've never done before, using RNA instead of DNA, and the people are guinea pigs. And there's a rule at the FDA that you have to have 10 years of experience before you can even license these drugs. Well, they barely went 10 months, and it was all subsidized by the government and a lot of profiteering made. There's nothing really healthy about the way this was developed, but it's out there, and now you don't show your papers, but when you have the injection, then you have to, in a way, show that what's in your blood and what's in your system and what we put in your body. And anybody that would say that is a bunch of hooey and it will never happen, you don't have to worry about it, are the same ones that said there would never be these vaccination papers that everybody has to carry around. But the one thing on our side, Chris, I think, is governments are inept. They're totally inept. That's bad because they harm a lot of innocent people. But on other things, let's say that they are truly won exactly what we fear, total control of every movement we make. Well, I think there's still enough independence and freedom in this country. People are just going to rebel. And that is why it's so great to see people going to the beach and finding a governor like in Florida just saying, hey, there's a bunch of nonsense. Just go to the beach and have a good time. Drives them nuts. And when now we see a lot of examples being pointed out that whether it's a governor or a mayor writing these rules, which are insane, has no benefit whatsoever to controlling diseases, they're being caught because while they're writing the laws of the next day, they're disobeying them. That really upsets people. They might have disagreements on how valuable are the masks and different things, and there really is room for at least a discussion about that. But that is not as important to the people when they realize what a hypocrite's doing, because the hypocrisy here points them out. They're cotton-picking liars, what it is. But a lot of people now think governments lie routinely, and an authoritarian government always depends on lies. So that's why truth is very important. And my goal is to, promote the truth and get as many people to understand exactly what's going on as possible.
That's great, Dr. Paul. I'll finish up with my statement. I believe what's happened here is liberty was taken for granted, because most of our lives, and myself included, I've lived here my whole life, you believe it'll never happen here. All the bad stuff you read that happens elsewhere, people lining up for food, closed churches. I mean, that was Soviet Union kind of stuff. Even the Romans, did they even close churches? I mean, so there's nothing special about being an American per se. We're people just like everybody else, everywhere else. What separated America from the rest of the world was the ideas that people espoused here. It was the ideas of liberty. It was believed, it dominated. Not everybody, of course, but it dominated. But we as people are just as susceptible to bad ideas as anyone else, and we're living through that right now. But we could always adopt the right ideas once again, and we can do our best to bring that about. Liberty, private property, your property is secure. The government is not in every single ounce of your business. And, we may, like Dr. Paul said, go from taking it for granted to eventually wanting it very badly. So let's just share the ideas, us, you, everyone, and hope for the best.
Yes. There's also this move on that, and we heard that Biden said that the first thing, or one of the first things he's going to do, along with Fauci, is they're going to have the announcement that everybody in America has to wear a mask, indoors or outdoors, for 100 days. Oh, that is crazy. That means they're already starting it. If they can impose this, that's how bad the situation is in the government, because I happen to believe that even with Trump's imperfections, he has a desire quite a bit different, and that's why he arouses so much hatred from the establishment people. And they are too much in charge. Just think of how the judicial system, the FBI and Justice Department, were able to do what they did to Flynn, and what they have done, in Russiagate, and tie up the markets and convince a lot of Americans that Trump was in collusion with Russia. So this goes on. They are very powerful. And when I look at it, I get actually more frustrated than I should, because I keep thinking it shouldn't be this bad, because how can they get control of so much, especially when even with Trump as a president, we don't have a full control of the FBI. We've known that the FBI and the CIA have never been organizations, although they would have a lot of good people in it. They really weren't the people that would protect us. Certainly, when you look at the assassinations, they themselves were very much involved. So this is something, and I keep thinking that even in my reading and studying about some of the assassinations, frequently there were different factions. There wasn't just 12 people or 10 people or 5 people or just the CIA. It was a group of people. It was truly, a conspiracy to do this. But the people that knew about this are the ones that were aware of the fact that they used the mob, the mobsters, the people whose job was, in the so-called quiet real world, the people who were in business, the mobsters were very involved. So that is the mob. And I got to thinking the other day, when you think that they did that, we knew it was possible, but there was always the thought that, they don't control the world. But some days I look at this thing and say, it looks like they're in control of the government completely, the police. And that is essentially what it is. And once again, that's not to say that every policeman and every FBI agent's, part of the understanding. But I tell you what, the people who are making these decisions, and what has happened here in the last, say, 5 or 6 years has been tremendous, that there aren't very many people on our side in official position. So we have morphed into a position where this is a very dangerous situation, because the mob is in control. And financially, this is the case too, when you think about corporatism and corporations, and even this with this virus, how much money is being made on this, and the corporations are there, and it's Republicans and Democrats on this. They get together and pass all these budgets, and they're very, very much in charge. So it's a combination that we're being threatened, and we shouldn't be surprised, because I believe it's a moral issue, and it's also a freedom issue. And the moral issue is that those people in government, when they do these things, and this was certainly the case in the Soviet and the Nazi system, people who did these really, really bad things, they didn't lie awake at night. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have shot him. I shouldn't have done this. No, they have no moral compass whatsoever. And I'm afraid we're drifting into that, because, our whole system, has morphed into that for 100 years, where governments took over and they were in control. They undermined liberty, and they knew they were doing that, but they were doing it for the good. They were humanitarians. They were going to feed the world. I mean, how could you find a better example of that than Bill Gates? I for years thought, oh, Bill Gates, maybe he's a neat guy. He has a lot of money, and now he really wants to help. Well, you know, my opinion is a little bit different than that now. So, but people do believe that. They want to believe this, but they're capable of overlooking things. But the people who get involved and get the power, I don't think Fauci lies awake at night and thinks about, well, I was inconsistent on this, I shouldn't do this. And yet every day we come up with an inconsistency of Fauci. I disappoint his opinion a month ago and he switched over. So it's the same thing over and over. Chris, do you have another statement? Do you want to make a comment or anything?
No, that was it for me, Dr. Paul.
Okay, very good. I want to thank you, Chris, very much for being on the program today. And we're going to do our best to continue with our efforts to get the people aware of what's happening. And today we wanted to make sure people knew, and we'll keep up because the information is just flowing in. Surveillance, the vicious surveillance of the monolithic state is alive and well, and it's economic and financial, now medical, and also the judicial system. It's the power in the judicial system that is probably has come about in a noticeable way more than ever. We knew they've been around, but boy, they are really powerful in the judicial system, and that makes it very difficult to fight. And when you think about what handicaps Trump has been up against, I think, you know, when I look at his record, why does he have these people in here? Why did this guy end up in the FBI and all this? But when you look at the people that he was up against, I imagine that was a pretty big job. But anyway, we're going to stick with our message that we're going to promote the cause of liberty, believing very sincerely that it's big government, it's authoritarian government, it's the lack of respect for individual rights that is our real problem. And we had a taste of what liberty was like in our early history that has been gradually eroded over the past 100 years. And it's been both academic and practical and economic and political. And it continues. At the same time, there's a lot of rumblings of people who are saying enough is enough, and we're going to stand up against them. So we don't know what's going to happen in the next year, but it might be one of the most critical years ever on the decision by the American people. Are we going to start resisting and go out, or are we going to start off this next year coming by canceling Christmas? That is a big question, but this whole idea that we can't have more than 10, 15 people in our house, matter of fact, I think they don't even want that many in a house. So this is powerful, and this is the reason why the American people have to wake up. Too often they say, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I get a check from the government. What if they take my check from me? And that is a true thing in the authoritarian governments. That's what they did. You obeyed, or you lost your check, you lost your food stamps, and you lost your apartment. And we don't want it to get like that. Well, we have to get people to understand if they want to have peace and prosperity, they have to accept the principles of the responsibility that one has in a free society. We know what it's all about. The Constitution gave us some pretty good points to follow, and it's about time this country woke up and say, I'd rather live in a free society than a totalitarian society that is invading us at the moment. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.